Kakadosh Boker Tov. We're continuing with halachot of Netilat Yadayim. Shulchan Aruch B'Siv Gimel says, Lo yiga biyado kodem netila lepe velo lechotem velo leoznaim velo le'enayim. So here Maran is bringing down in the Shulchan Aruch what exactly are you not supposed to touch before Netilat Yadayim. So he says, don't touch your mouth, don't touch your nose, don't touch your ears, and don't touch your eyes. Now, why exactly? Says the Mishnah Berurah before the Netilat Yadayim, because Ruach Ra shoreh ala yadayim. There's a Ruach Ra which is on the hands. So where exactly is it on the hands? Rav Chaim Falache and the Yafeh Lev brings down, it's Davka be'etzbeot velo bekaf hayad. It's specifically on your fingers and not in the palm of your hands. And therefore, if a person does need to touch, right, with the palm of his hand, it's going to be no problem. It's only a problem in the fingers, right? So the fingers is where it's going to be a problem. Now, what exactly damage is it going to do? So the Gemara brings down, there's a Gemara Masechet Shabbat says that if a person touches his eyes, he'll become blind. If he touches his ears, he'll become deaf. The Kaf HaChaim though comes and he says that even though the Gemara says this, it doesn't mean physically, because we see many people that they come and they touch and there's no problem. Rather, the kavanah is spiritually. What does that mean spiritually? That day he will become deaf, that he won't understand the Torah, or that day he will become blind, that he won't understand the Torah. He won't understand what he's seeing, or he won't understand what he's hearing. So that's the explanation that it's not a physical, it's a spiritual, and it's for that day in itself. However, though the Minchat Aaron, he wants to come and he wants to say that no, that really be'emet it's kipshutan. What does that mean? But the nezek is not immediately, but it's usually when a person becomes older. Meaning that really be'emet it is a physical blindness or a physical that he'll become deaf. But you can't see it now. It's little by little, and then by the time he gets to the person's elderly age, that's when it's going to come to fruition. The Sefer Tosefet Yom Kippurim also says that Lo Ra'inu Mi Shenizok, it's because the Ruach Ra'ah is not Mitzuyah B'Zmanenu. It's not as common as it was in the olden days. Obviously, if a person does have to touch, right, when they're, for example, let's say they're in the middle of their sleep, they wake up and they're not going to get up to do the Netilat Yadayim. They're still going back to sleep. And now they have to touch, whether it's going to be one of these places. The Ben Ish Chai, the Kaf HaChaim says, they should do it through a clothing. Meaning take another clothing, and then they're going to start touching, whether it's going to be their eyes, whether it's going to be different places, right, of the body. Now, when a person is going to sleep during the day, or he's going to sleep after Chatzot, remember that sleeping after Chatzot, or sleeping during the day, is a different halacha. The Ben Ish Chai, the Kaf HaChaim says, you do not need to be careful of touching these body parts, because there's no Ruach Ra'ah, which is going to be shoreh on this shena, on this sleeping. That is the shita of the Ben Ish Chai, the Kaf HaChaim. So if a person makes sure that he sleeps after Chatzot, let's say after 12:40ish, around something like that time. So therefore, what happens is that he doesn't have to be careful about touching these body parts, or if he sleeps during the day. Now, however, even though this is the shita of the Ben Ish Chai, Kaf HaChaim, the Or Letzion says that even if you do sleep after Chatzot, you should be careful lechatechila, because there are some shitot that there does exist even after the Chatzot, and therefore lechatechila, you should be careful in such halacha. Right? We'll just mention the next halacha, which is important as well. Lo yiga b'gid shechar shamishmush v'yad mafsida shechar. What about touching foods, right, before Netilat Yadayim? So we know that if a person comes and he touches food before Netilat Yadayim, says the Mishnah Berurah, אין לאסור המאכל על ידי, right, המאכל על ידי זה, אבל לכתחילה מאוד יש להיזהר שלא ליגע בשום מאכל. A person should be careful not to touch the food. However, though, if you do touch food, and it's before Netilat Yadayim, you're not going to prohibit the food right beforehand. Now, if you touched food that you're able to, wash it 3 times, and therefore he comes and he says you shouldn't smoke or do all these things before Netilat Yadayim. So here it's actually brought down, the Kaf HaChaim and Rav Ovadia Yosef, the Or Letzion, they are posek, that whether it's a person is going to touch a food or a drink, it's the same halacha. But a Yereh Shamayim should be machmir on himself not to eat or to drink this food. The Ben Ish Chai is posek that if you touched the liquid, you should throw out the liquid right before Netilat Yadayim. He says because at the end of the day, you can't do obviously hadacha, you cannot rinse out a liquid. So therefore obviously it's very, very important for the people just to understand, right, that Netilat Yadayim before is very important. Don't touch any food or a drink. Remember that we did bring down the Ben Ish Chai to do with kelim and begadim, which means that the tumah might not go on a utensil or on a clothing, but on food and drink it does, and therefore a person should be very, very careful. The last halakha I'll mention is, okay, so can we buy bread or pizza or whatever it is from somebody, right, that maybe be'emet they're not shomer Torah mitzvot. Why? Because maybe they're not doing Netilat Yadayim, and if they don't do Netilat Yadayim, and now I'm going to buy from them, whether it's going to be bread or pizza or anything, any type of food from them that they're actually preparing with their hands, what's going to happen? So here he says, Rav Yosef is posek, that even though kanireh nagu b'ma'achalim elu belo netilat yadayim kadin, efshar lismoch al kach shemistama shatfu yadayim b'mayim etzorach nikayon. They probably did wash their hands for cleanliness, and therefore nechlesha ruach ra'ah, and therefore it cannot grab onto the foods. However, though the Or Letzion says, Tov lizael lechatechila lo leechol ma'achalim elu. You should lechatechila be careful not to eat these foods. So you see from here the importance of what it is of even being careful of what exactly where you buying your foods in order to be careful that you shouldn't have the ruach ra'ah also on the food.